Welcome to this demo/training video on TriCaster Advanced Edition 3. I'm Kane Peterson, and I'm going to take you through some of the new features that you'll find in Advanced Edition 3. This video is kind of made to hopefully kind of demo what's new, but for those of you who have it, also kind of show you, give you a little mini training, I guess you could say, as well as to how to use some of these features. Now, Advanced Edition version 3 can be installed on TriCaster Mini, 410, 460, 860, and 8000 systems. There is a compatibility checker tool that you do need to run to verify that the system in question can accept this new version of software. So download that from the NewTek website, run it. It might tell you that you need to update your graphics card drivers, your GPU drivers. So if you get an error message kind of relating to something like that, go download the latest NVIDIA drivers, install them on the system, and then run the tool again. And it would tell you if this system can or cannot be upgraded. Probably, unless your system's very old, it should be upgradable in most cases. So I expect that by and large, most systems can accept the upgrade, but you're definitely going to want to verify that before you purchase. Now, the system I'm running here is a TriCaster 460, so we'll be going through here kind of looking at all the new stuff. Everything I'm going to show does apply across the board though, so minis will gain this along with all the way going up to a TriCaster 8000. Now you can see we're on the home screen, and it's a little different. It's the same set of buttons that you had before. They're just no longer oriented in a ring shape. They're now just in a list shape. But other than that, you're going to find the same things in the same spots here. I'm going to go to the next screen, and same thing. It's no longer a ring of buttons. It's now a list, but otherwise the same options that you're used to. So let's start up the TriCaster Live desktop. And in a few moments here, we will be able to start showing you really kind of what changes and new aspects you can find in here. Okay, so the first thing you might notice is that the TriCaster interface looks a little different than you might be used to. This is a new capability we've added into the system called Express Mode. And this is to try to make the system appeal to new users, people who are not advanced, switcher operators, maybe volunteers, students, people who can be put off by, just throwing too much stuff in front of them, and then, they're kind of like, I can't run this, it's too difficult. So this is what you call Express Mode. And Express Mode kind of works in a couple different levels, and you can kind of pick and choose which aspects of it that you want. So right now, what we're looking at is the Express Mode interface, where the interface, as you can see, is mostly multi-view. There's still a switcher panel at the bottom, and then at the very bottom, where you normally would have your DDRs and audio mixer, that's all been collapsed down. Now, if you want to go back to the traditional mode that you're used to, just click on the bottom bar in an empty area here, and that will open up the bottom part of the interface. And now you can see it's just like the TriCaster interface that you're used to. So that's all you need to do. And if you want to go back, you can click that bar again, and it will collapse back down. So this can also be useful for people who are running a single monitor. They might be more interested in having more multi-view area because they're going to be driving the system off the control panel, so you can take advantage of that as well. Now, another thing you can also do is you'll notice that there's buttons in here in the bottom corner that say Switcher Express. This allows you to change the switcher bar from the traditional switcher mode that you're used to an Express Mode switcher, which is a simplified switcher to operate with. In this mode, you'll see that there's just one row of buttons, and all you need to do is click on the button to transition to it, and whatever transition you have selected will be applied. So I've just got fades in here, so as you see, as I go between clips, they just fade. But I could load any clip in that I wanted, or any transition type that I want in here, so I'm not limited to cuts or fades. It can be whatever I'd like. So it's kind of like hot punching, but hot punching with transitions. And of course, if you want to cut, you can just select a cut in there, and then you'll just cut between sources. So that's one difference. The other is you'll see that there's just access to 2 downstream keyers. Again, trying to make the information interface simpler for people. So the other 2 downstream keyers do exist if you're on a system that supports them, which would be a 460 or higher. In fact, if you put something in those additional downstream keyers, they would still be on the screen. So it's a great way that you could put like a bug on the screen, and then in this interface, the person wouldn't have the ability to turn it off on accident because it's kind of hidden from them. But just realize you can do that if you wanted to. And if you want to go back, you just click back to switcher and you're back to the traditional switcher panel. So that's another aspect of Express Mode. And then the last part is that we can also make the monitors, the multi-view monitors on here, clickable to switch between different sources. So that can be done under the options menu. There's an option called click on monitors to switch. If you turn this on, as you can see, it's checked now, it's on. Now all I have to do is click on a monitor and it will perform a transition to that. Now I'm on cuts right now. Let's change it to just, again, the twirl in here just so you can see something happening. And you can see that it will do that transition as I switch between the different camera angles in there. So that's all stuff that's been added to try to make the main interface a little less intimidating to new users. The ability to change the switcher panel at the bottom, make it much more of a multi-view interface, make that multi-view clickable if you'd like to run it that way. In fact, you could even run the system with a touch screen. So you could add a touch screen to the system and it would just be a matter of just tapping on the monitors to perform transitions if you wanted to. Another aspect that's also been implemented in here is if you put your pointer over the monitors, over where the audio meters are, you can see a little kind of audio meter handle appear. And in fact, I'm going to turn on the audio meter down here so you can see it. And if I go grab it up here, you can see I can now adjust the audio down on the audio mixer below. So this is another way that if you don't have the audio mixer up, you can make these adjustments right from the main multi-view as well. One last aspect that has changed is also the panels that you open up when you go to configure like inputs or different parts of the software. So for example, let's just click on monitor 2 in here, and you'll see that the panel that opens the information is now categorized into groups. And if you click on a group, all of that information appears that it's kind of appropriate for that. And if you click on a different one, then the other ones will collapse and the new ones open up on here. So again, this has been added for to make it a little easier. Instead of you having to wade through a bunch of information all being displayed at you at once, you can open up just the part you want to get to it. Also for touchscreen operation, it makes it a little less possible to only click on what you need and not misclick onto something else you don't mean to click on. So you see everything kind of runs in this mode. But these panels are also intelligent. When you open up certain things, they will give you access to controls that apply to that input. So this is just what a regular video input looks like. But if I go, for example, to a DDR down here and open a panel, you'll see that besides the same tabs I had before, I also get a playlist tab. And I could go in here and add new clips in if I wanted to. So let's just say I wanted to add this bumper car shot in here. I can put it in. I could rearrange the clip order just like you can in the main switcher panel below. So it gives you another way to access those controls. You can adjust autoplay, you can loop, all of that kind of stuff can be done in here. And you'll also notice that those playback controls are also available right in the multi-view itself. So you can hit play and stop now in the multi-view monitor to play those clips. You can also go to previous or next. There's little buttons on that. So again, lots of functions to bring those controls out to the surface. So even in a touchscreen application or even in the Express Mode layout, you still have access to these things without having to constantly jump back and forth between them. So those are all new functions that kind of affect the UI that you'll find in Advanced Edition version 3. Now, another new aspect in here is PTZ controls. You'll notice there's no longer a PTZ tab down here. The PTZ controls have now been built into every single input. And one of the things this does add is the ability to have more PTZ cameras than you could control before. So in previous versions, you maxed out at 8 cameras. That's how many you could configure and select. Now, you can select as many as your system supports. So if you're on a TriCaster 860 or 8000, you can now support up to 12 PTZ cameras if you wanted to. So to set one of these up, you'd go into the input. I'm going to select my NewTek PTZ1. And when you do this, you'll see that a PTZ tab opens up down below here. I think I also have the keyer on. Let's turn that off. And as you can see in here, here are my PTZ controls. And I can now move that camera around between the different presets that I have set up in that camera. So that is all in here. You'll also will notice that there are some additional options for the manual controls. We now have the ability to invert the joystick in the different directions that you want. So if you find that the airplane controls where you kind of pushed up but the camera tilted down didn't work the way you wanted, you can now invert the tilt to make it work. You push up and it will tilt up. Or if the camera's mounted upside down, off of a ceiling, you might want to invert pan. So you can now have the joystick and the camera react in the way that you want based on how things are oriented towards each other. Is the camera pointed to me, or is it pointed away from me? That would also kind of configure some of that control as well. So that is all new for the PTZ control presets. Now, one thing that you are going to find appear in the next software release, I'm actually running a beta version here, but I don't mind sharing this because it's already been announced on the NewTek forums, is there is now a keyboard shortcut to bring up the PTZ property panel, so that if you're going between different inputs, this gives you a quick way to get to those settings without having to go to the monitor, click on the gear, open it up in there. So all you have to do is put the appropriate camera that you want to control on preview. So I want to control camera 1, right? That's my PTZ camera. And then on the keypad of my keyboard, press the asterisk key, and that will open up the property window for the current input that's on preview. You can see there's my PTZ presets. I can then select what I want in there. If I go to a different camera, let's say I went to camera 7, I know there's no camera on there, and hit it, it will still open, but as you can see, there are no PTZ settings because I've not configured this one. But when I go back to camera 1 and hit asterisk, there they are again. So that's something you're going to find in the next software release coming out, making it quicker and easier to get to those PTZ controls in the system. Another new feature is LiveMat Pro. So you'll notice that on camera 2 here, I have a green screen shot, and if I go and configure this, I'll find my LiveMat settings in here. Now, it doesn't from the surface look any different, but LiveMat Pro is a new enhanced keying algorithm that's going to result in a better end product. So you're still going to set it up and work just like you normally would. You're just going to find that you're going to get better results from here. So I'll just go in here and quickly select a key color. I've already got an ME set up in here, ME1, and there is now Kiki on a virtual set, and with one click came out quite well. So that is another new feature is LiveMat Pro. And then to go along with this, there also is in the comps or presets, depending upon which system you're in, is what this button will say, either comps or presets. There's now speed controls that have been built in here as well. This used to be done down in the speed controls where the transitions were. It was kind of a little, you had to go down there to adjust it for here. Now these controls are right inside the panel, so you can go in here and adjust the speed of your transitions. You can also type or drag in there what you'd like as well. And then I can animate my camera between these different moves in here that I'd like to have. So that's another thing you'll also find are the speed controls for comps are now inside the comp panel, or if your system's got presets, those same speed controls will be inside the presets panel. Okay. The next big features to look at are streaming and recording. There's been some changes to these two parts of the system. Let's take a look at recording first. So in the recording panel, when I open this up, you'll see that I still have my 4 channels of local recording that you would have before. This will be in a QuickTime format that you can bring into a lot of systems, editing systems or for archive in there. But you'll also will notice that there's another category called external. And you might be wondering what exactly is an external record. So let me explain these, because there are 2 different things it can do depending upon what it is that you have set up. Now, the first you can do is you can use it to record NDI-HX sources to disk. Now, it only is going to work with HX sources. So that could be something from a camera, a PTZ camera that spits out NDI-HX, or from a Spark HDMI or SDI box that spits out NDI-HX. If it's one of these devices, you will see that you can select it from the list. So you'll notice that input 1 in my panel here is selectable. In fact, it's kind of already a little bit lit up compared to the other ones. You'll notice that I can't select input 2 in there because it's not NDI-HX. I could turn this on, and this will give me the ability to record that NDI-HX feed, which is my PTZ camera here, to disk. Now, what you're going to end up with is an H.264 recorded file in in that destination. Now the bit rate and the properties of that file is going to be whatever my camera is currently set to. So in NDI-HX, when you go into the device, in the web GUI for these devices, you can set a low, medium, or high quality setting, and whatever you pick there, that's going to be the quality of the signal that's being sent out. And then when you record that, you're going to record exactly that same bit stream to disk. So this will work for those kind of devices. So if you have a lot of NDI-HX devices, this basically can give you like 4 more channels of recording of those sources directly into the system. So that's one thing you can do with it. The other thing you can do with it are devices that have native recording capability can be triggered to start and stop recording from this as well. Now, I don't have anything set up to show that right now, but if you had, for example, one of our our NC1 IO products, these are our multi-channel input boxes where you can plug in multiple SDI sources, turn them into NDI, and send them on to something else. Those boxes have recording capability in them as well. So when those sources are hooked up to the system, they will also become available in this drop-down list as a source you can select. Now, in that case, when I hit record, all that's going to happen is that the TriCaster is going to send a command to that external box to tell it to start recording. Now, whatever that box is set up to do, however it's set to whatever format it records, whatever path it's set up to record, that's where it's going to go. It has nothing to do. All this does is say, hey, you over there, start recording. So you can certainly have a mixture of these two as well. So you can set up to 4 of these depending upon what kind of devices you have around you. But that is how the external record tool works. If it's something else that does not support either of those, it's not a device that supports triggering a recording, or it's not an HX device. For example, input 3 on my system is an NDI feed coming in, but it's from a VLC player, which is not an HX device, and it's not a recordable device. You'll notice that input 3, I can't select it as a source in there because it's something that doesn't support it. So that is what the external allows you to do. Then beyond that, you have audio, but you'll notice that there is no MPEG-4 in here. The H.264 MPEG-4 recording has been removed out of the record panel. Now, it has not really gone away. It has just moved to another part of the interface. So let's take a look at that now. And that is all handled under the Stream Encode panel in here. And when you open this one up, you get this new panel that appears that has all of your streaming settings in it. Now, the first thing you might notice is, hey, I've already got Advanced Edition version 3 installed, and I don't have a 1 and a 2. I only have a single encode option in here. Again, it has been reported on the forums already, so I don't mind sharing this in advance, that in the next software release, you're going to get 2 encoders. So at this point, you will have the same number of encoders that existed previously in Advanced Edition 2, right? You had 1 encoder dedicated to streaming and 1 encoder dedicated to recording. Now I have 2 encoders. They're in the stream panel, but I can use them in either way, or at both ways and simultaneously. I could stream 2 and record 2, or I could stream 1, record 1. It's whatever combination you want to come up with. So they're much more flexible than what you had before. Now, in this panel, let me zoom in here again, you can go into one of these encoders, you can hit the gear, and all the parameters are now available inside the encoder, so you can choose the bit rate you want, the resolution, the frame rate. You can choose one of the presets. We'll just automatically set things up for you in here. As you punch these settings in, you can see there's even a little quality meter to kind of give you an idea if what you've chosen is fairly decent or not. So you can, before you even have to stream it, you can do that. So all of this is now built right in, and you can set encoder 1 and encoder 2 up with completely different settings now. So if you want to stream a low res and a high res, you could do that. If you need to stream a particular set of settings to go out to the internet, you could do that, and then set the second stream up for like a very high bitrate encoding. You can see we can go much higher in bitrate than we could before. In fact, to go crazy with it, you can go up to over 90 megabits. That's probably way higher than you would ever need for HD, but you can go in there and really set the resolution needed. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I need an H.264 file, you can now punch in exactly the settings they want and generate that file in real time. So a lot of new enhancements in here. And then in the same panel are all your destinations. So you can pick all the different streaming destinations you want, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Vimeo, Restream.io, all of these are in here and then some. If it's not in the list, there is still the custom, and this will allow you to just manually punch in the RTMP information and stream ID and authentication if needed. So we can stream to any other service that's not in the list already. Now, I do want to point out that the streaming is now only the new modern streaming engine. There is no more legacy streaming options. So if you were using Windows Media or anything from the legacy streaming panel in a previous TriCaster model, and that does include the plugins or the old Adobe Flash Live Media Encoder method of legacy encoding, those are no longer in here. Everything is now using the modern, it's using APIs, or it's using the RTMP through the custom option in here. So I just want to point out, I don't think this will affect many people, but if you happen to be reliant on one of those legacy streaming methods, you would have to come up with a new method to do it, or I would probably highly suggest looking at moving to a more modern method of streaming, because this is pretty much what everything now is working with. So there's the new streaming panel. A couple last things you can also do with this. You can also now stream at aspect ratios that are not 16:9. So some people want to stream square streaming. So when you hold your stream on or when you watch it on a phone, it doesn't matter how you hold the phone, the stream is the same aspect ratio. So you can see on stream 1, I just punched in 720 by 720 in here. And with that, there is also now a square aspect safe area that you can turn on your program out, so that now you can see exactly what parts of the image will be part of the stream and what parts would be cut off from the stream. And since there's two streaming engines, I could stream a square and a 16:9 simultaneously. So that also gives you the ability to deal with both of those. Finally, with the streaming, we can also choose what gets streamed into those two encoders, or what video content goes into those two encoders. So if you click under Source Setup here, in the panel that appears on the side, you can now set up Stream 1, Stream 2. You can choose which output of the TriCaster goes into it. So if you needed to stream two completely different streams with different content, that could also be done. You could also choose which audio goes with it. So if you needed to stream like multi-language, maybe an English stream and a Spanish stream, that could also be done. So as you can see, with the new streaming engine, there's a lot more flexibility than you've ever had before with what you can do with these two streams. Okay, on to some changes in the buffers area. So in the buffers where you can load your graphics in here, one thing that has changed is there are no more no more buffer presets. It used to be when you clicked on these buttons, there would be like a 9-way pop out of different. That's gone away, but what it has been replaced with is now a 16 selection data preset. So you'll notice that when I click on the buffer in here, I get these data presets that appear. So let me kind of show you how this works and how you can take advantage of this. So let's first of all put this buffer to air, right? So you can see it. It says guest 3 on there, right? On my program out. I can now change that just by selecting these new data presets. So if I select the first one, it's got my name and NewTek on there, and I just created a few other ones. To create new ones of these, you just go into the title editor, just as you normally would, and you could then change this. Let's say I needed to add a guest 5 on here. I could add that in, and then click this presets button, and there's my data presets. I could snapshot that preset as a new preset, and if I don't like the default naming it gives it, I can also right-click on here and rename it to what I want. Let's call it guest 5. And now, as you can see, I can click through, I guess it should have been guest 4, but whatever. You can see I can click through there and have that. So that allows you to then expand the list with up to 16 pieces of data that you can then from an instant select and re-update this title with new information in there. The other thing that's new though is you can also now save out a new version of the title template with these changes in here. And it's not limited to just the presets as well. So for example, let's say I realize the font size on here needs to be different. Maybe I decide on this preset that I want a 72 point font, right? We'll make it a little bit bigger. And that's what I'm looking for. Well, I could go in here and you'll see there's an export button. I could choose to export this as a new template. All right. And so now that I've saved it off, let me go into another buffer. Let's go into buffer 4. and browse and load that new template I just made. And now that I've loaded it, you can see it's got the same list of data presets in there. And when I click on it, at least if I go to that preset, it should have, oh, maybe it doesn't save the size. I thought it did. I guess it just saves data presets. Sorry, I guess I thought it did something that it didn't. But it does save the presets, which is the main part in there. So that is the changes you'll find in the buffer, are data presets. Another new feature are new templates for sports graphics in here. So let's, or just some new templates, I guess in general. They're not really all sports, but that's what a lot of them are. So let me just show you some samples of what, not all, but some of these look like. We'll put this on Program Out and change this so that you can see this here. Oops, really quick, make it so it's on the screen. There we go. And so there's one. And there are lower thirds, there are score bars of different types in here. There are score bugs you can choose from. So again, this is just a sampling of some of the different looks and styles you will find in here. So these are just included with the content update when you install Advanced Edition 3. So that's something else that you will find in the system as well. And then finally, a couple last just odds and ends. There is a new feature in here called the Notification Center. So you notice up in the upper right corner is this little icon. It looks kind of almost like a little chat bubble. And right now it says I've got one notification in it. If I click on it, it opens up this window. And this will give you a running list of information that has been happening in this session. So if you think about in previous TriCaster models, sometimes you might get a message, right? It could be just an informational message. It might be a warning. It could be an error that would have popped up kind of in the middle top of the screen. It was there for maybe about 10 seconds, and then it would go away. And if you missed it, you wouldn't even have known that error happened, or maybe it was something you wanted to investigate afterwards, or maybe it's something you want to call support on, and you want to be able to tell them exactly what it said. Well, now that information will be logged in this notification window so that you can always come in here after, click on it again, and see what happened in this session. So that's a great way so that you can see that info. Just to kind of show it a little bit, I'm going to go and tell the system to give me the version information. So you'll notice that the little chat bubble icon has no indicator right now. I just hit the key. You can see there's one new notification, and the color does change based on the status of that notification. Is it a message or a warning? So you have a better idea. Is it something you should really be looking into? And if I click on it, you can see it's now giving me the model of my system, the version number, and what session resolution I'm running in. So that is the Notification Center. Another thing you can also do is install Firefox as your default web browser in here. So if I go into the Stream Encode button, you'll see there's a web browser button in here, or this is also available in the Notification Center. It displays both the the IP address of your system if you need to know it to access it over the network, but also a web browser button. And I've installed Firefox on my system, so when I click on it here in a second, it will open up. And so now I have a new modern web browser available in my system. So if I need to go configure a CDN or modify something over through a web browser, I can now have that open as the web browser that I'm going to use instead of IE11. Now, one thing I will just tell you, when you install Firefox, it does install a thing called the Firefox Maintenance Service. This is not required for Firefox to operate. It's just for background updating. So that service will cause an error message, a warning message when the TriCaster starts that software is installed. I would go uninstall that software. Firefox will still operate. Firefox will still update. You just have to manually do it, which is probably the way you want it as well. So you just go to the Help menu, Help and About, and then if there's an update, it will actually perform an update right there, whereas the maintenance service, it would just do it behind the scenes. So I've done that on mine, and that's what I would recommend doing with Firefox in here. And then the last thing I want to show is another feature that kind of goes along with the PTZ control. So to take advantage of this, though, you need to do it from another computer. So I'm going to jump over onto my laptop here and show you how to use this. So here's my laptop, and I've just got a web browser open. In this case, it's Chrome. I will type in the IP of my Advanced Edition system, hit enter. Now it might ask you for a username and password, and the default username and password is admin and admin. You can change the password in the administrative tools setting under the set live panel password option if you want to change that. But what I want to point out here is that there is one module in here that you can take advantage of in Advanced Edition 3, and that is the preview preset. So Live Panel as a tool is not available in Advanced Edition 3, so I know you see all these other ones, but you notice they're all ghosted out, but the preview presets has been implemented. So if you click on this, this will open up a web control that allows you to control whatever PTZ camera is on preview channel. So if I go over and show this to you here, you'll see that on my TriCaster here, I happen to have camera 1 currently on preview, so which is a PTZ camera. So when I go over here, you'll see camera 1 presets have shown up, and I can now click on these and move the camera to wherever those presets have been set up in there. I think a few of them have been moved since I've set those presets, so the icons don't match, but they do update if I was to reset those again. If I go to a different camera, you'll see the presets go away. There I'm on input 2, but when I come back to input 1, they come back. So just whatever camera's on preview, this gives you another way for somebody to control that camera and send it to one of the presets that you find in there. So I hope you find this short and quick training session, demo session useful. Advanced Edition 3 is now available, and you can go put this on your system and gain all of these new functions that I've just pointed out. So I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy TriCaster Advanced Edition 3.